So there are a couple of microphones set up throughout the room, and I would love to be challenged on a couple of these. I know that some of you feel a little bit differently than I do about a couple of different areas, so I'd love to hear any comments that you may have.
Wonderful speech. Thank you very much. When you were talking about an instructor not having a master's degree in the subject area, or the full credit hours in a master's program for the subject area, many of the institutions require that for accreditation.
Absolutely.
So what is your response to that?
Absolutely. So I have two answers there. Number one, we need to start talking to the accrediting institutions themselves, and they need to wake up with the times, straight up. Okay, they need to understand what's happening out there and allow for some flexibility. So that's first. But second, there are things you can do as an institution. You can start internally asking yourselves things like, okay, if we are going to run these programs, how are we going to allow these teachers to get these credits? What work can we do with them? What work can we do within the schools? Can we set up agreements amongst multiple universities within a single state to offer a single licensure program? Because maybe there are only 4 or 5 or 6 chemistry teachers statewide who even need this stuff. So it'd be hard for a single institution to do it. What if some institutions started working together and did it across levels? You know, one thing I didn't mention earlier was that in Washington State, we have something called the Accountability and Achievement Index. The Accountability and Achievement Index is a way that we, for lack of a better term, grade our schools. One of the ways that we're going to start grading our schools is based on the number of concurrent enrollment programs that they offer in their school. If our schools are going to be graded on how many of these articulation agreements they have, then shouldn't we have something set up statewide that allows the schools to do it? That means that we can now get our states behind us, hopefully, and start talking to these accrediting institutions and start looking at other methods. You know, one of the things I like about the NACEP standards is that they say that, you know, NACEP doesn't actually say that you have to have a master's degree in subject area. They say that whatever it is for your college needs to be the same for your instructors, and I completely agree with that. I really liked a comment that I heard just yesterday. What if the standards for 100 level coursework was different than the standards for 200, 300, and 400 level? Maybe you do need to have a doctoral degree or a master's degree for 200, 300, or 400, but maybe you need to have a different requirement for 100 level coursework. So I think that there's ways we can look at that. Other questions I would love to entertain.
I have a question for you, sir. I also enjoyed, I'm over this way as well.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. I also enjoyed your presentation. I would like for you to speak on that are kids ready for college? And in particular, I am interested in finding out or hearing a little bit more of the maturity level of kids once they get to college, because I hear a lot of, are they ready in the maturity area? Particularly in Michigan, we have students that are completing a 13th year of early college, so they're completing that associate's degree. So there is a lot of uncertainty in regards to, are they ready to be on a college campus so young in earlier upper grad courses?
Yep.
Thank you.
Lots of good questions embedded in there, and I want to hit on a couple of them. First and foremost, are kids ready? Our kids are as ready as we make them ready, just straight up. If you have higher standards in your high school, you will have better kids coming out. How do you get higher standards while in high school? There's got to be an extra carrot for the kids. I'll tell you what, when I taught chemistry not for college credit, you know how many bad grades I had? A lot. As soon as I offered it for college credit and made it harder, kids worked harder for it because they saw a direct relationship to the work they were doing now to then. I saw their maturity level rise because they were working harder, longer hours, and they were more satisfied with the outcome. So I think our kids will be as mature as we help them be, and I think that dual credit helps with that. But tacking on to that, we've got to be thinking about how we prepare our kids fundamentally differently. I would love to see a study done. This is a great research project for you guys since I know you have lots of extra time. I want to see what happens to overall student performance in schools that offer more concurrent enrollment courses. So if you've got a school that offers 60 college classes or credits compared to a school that offers 20 college credits, what's the overall performance rate of those students? Not of the concurrently enrolled students, but of everybody else. Because here's what happened in my school. Chemistry is at the junior level, physics is at the senior level. You know what happened to our sophomore and our biology classes? They actually improved their rigor. Why? Because they had to get ready for my classes. So it actually lifts the entire system when you start doing more of this stuff, is my perception. I would love to see a study and data done on that. So whoever has spare time, work on that one. I really think that it helps move it. Are all kids going to be mature enough? No, they're not. But I also know that when I went to college, not all of us were mature enough either. Okay, I know you were all very mature, right, when you went to college. On the opposite hand, we also have a proposal in Washington State to open up dual credit grades 9 through 12 instead of just 11 and 12 as it currently is under statute. We wanted to open up to 9, 12. Why? Because there are some students who are mature enough at the freshman level to do college level work. Some. I did not say that all 9th graders should be doing it, but some of them can. We know some 9th graders who are doing pre-calculus. We know some 10th graders who are doing straight up calculus. And shouldn't they be able to get credit for the work that they're doing? One of the biggest travesties at Zillah High School is we have a music appreciation class that is Music 101 at Central Washington University. Central's a great place, but unfortunately because of state law, only our juniors and seniors get credit for it. The freshmen and sophomore in the same class doing the same work do not receive credit, and that's just simply not fair. I think down here.
First of all, I just want to thank you for your speech. And what I do in the concurrent enrollment field is I mentor our teachers in the high schools. Mm-hmm. I have an unusual background, though. I taught college first, and then high school, and then middle school, and then I tutored elementary students through No Child Left Behind. So I get the K-12 thing, and I'm so pleased to hear you say how important that is for professors to understand. And I would just like to encourage anyone hiring for these supervisory or mentorship roles with the high school teachers, don't hesitate to hire people who lack PhDs and instead have experience in the K-12 system. I had a colleague tell me that my teachers were not going to listen to me because I didn't have a PhD. But my teachers keep telling me they're very grateful because I get it. So thank you for addressing that. I think that's a really important piece.
Thank you.
But you wanted a little disagreement.
Please, please.
You mentioned that it's not about the learning.
Mm-hmm.
It's basically about, work, it's about the workforce. It's about job skills training. That's a rather disturbing thing to hear an educator say.
Let me maybe tail back on that. It's not that it's not about the learning, okay? It's that the ultimate goal here is that we're creating productive members of society. And so if we're talking to our legislators and our policymakers, that's the thing that they're going to look for. That's how we're going to get legislation passed. I completely agree, though, that it is about the learning still. You have to understand that I'm a big proponent of learning.
Good to hear.
Okay. Sorry if that came across wrong earlier. I apologize.
Yeah, that's all.
Okay.
Good morning.
Morning.
I'm curious. I'm from Michigan, and the state is evolving in terms of how we're delivering or how they're delivering dual credit expanded. It has been expanded for students to begin as early as 9th grade. Some of the challenges we run into is with the FTEs, the double dipping. I know one of the University of Michigan has taken a position in terms of how they are accepting dual credit. And it scares students in Michigan who are planning to go to the University of Michigan because they have a fear that these credits will not be transferred. Mm-hmm. And I'm just looking for ways, or if you've had some experience in terms of the larger universities in your area, how to help convince them that these are accredited courses, that because the high school teachers are teaching the classes, there's not any, I don't want to necessarily say impropriety, but there's not any special or preferential treatment given to those students because these programs at the university are very competitive. And, we don't want the universities to think that because they're high school teachers, they're padding the students' GPAs to get into these universities.
Right.
How do we go back and articulate what exactly concurrent enrollment or these dual credit opportunities are?
Sure. You know, I think it all starts with education. I mean, just straight up, you have to educate these universities on what dual enrollment really is, what dual credit is. You know, so many times I hear people say, oh, well, if we just let the high schools teach us for college credit, then it's just going to, all the standards are going to go downhill and the rest. Remembering that a high school is not accredited. A high school is not the one that's actually getting the credentials. It's the teacher. The teacher, at least in Washington State anyway, I'm the one that holds the key to the class. The university has vetted me as a person. They haven't vetted the school. Last year, I served as the National Teacher of the Year. I stepped out of the classroom, and we had another person come in and teach chemistry. Chemistry was not offered for college credit at Zillow High School last year. So when we talk to these programs, we say, hey, you know what? If that course counted for the University of Michigan, or if that course counted for Central Washington University or Washington State University, then Central and WSU and Michigan are putting their stamp of approval on it. It's not because it was just some random high school teacher, as some people like to say. Okay, so we've got to educate folks on what this really is, and that it really is a really rigorous and vetted process. Of course, adopting NACEP standards helps. In Washington State, we actually are working really hard, and we have legislation that's already passed already that says if you do coursework at the high school level or a concurrent enrollment course, then that coursework is supposed to transfer amongst any of the four-year universities in the state. So you're supposed to have these great agreements statewide. Unfortunately, I say supposed to because it doesn't always work out the way that we intend it to. If we're going to do this right, then when you take Chemistry 181 at Zillow High School from Central Washington University, it should transfer straight to Eastern, it should transfer to Western, it should transfer to any public university out there. So we just need to educate folks. On this side here, and then we'll come back.
Yeah. You had mentioned earlier that you are currently having a proposal for the state of Washington to pay for all the concurrent enrollment for high school students. Where is that money coming from?
That's a great question. So the approximate cost is about $15 million per year. Okay. Now we have a couple of interesting things happening in Washington State already. We actually have our state Supreme Court had something called the McCleary decision that says that the state of Washington is underfunding basic education, that they're not fully funding it, to the tune of somewhere, depending on who you believe, between $2 and $4 billion a year. Okay. The legislature was actually held in contempt just a few months ago, and we're now looking at this next legislative session as some way, somehow, our legislators are supposed to figure out how to come up with those additional funds. Again, somewhere between $2 and $4 billion, even $7 billion, depending on who you listen to, is how much they need to come up with. Dual credit, it's $15 million a year. I don't mean to sound like that's not a lot of money, but it's not a lot of money in terms of what we spend on the state need grant. It's not a lot of money in terms of what we spend on financial aid. It's not a lot of money in terms of the overall education budget. And for something that so clearly shows an investment payoff, I just don't know how we can't do it. Where does the money come from ultimately? It comes from the taxpayers. Ultimately, it comes from there, and we have to be providing programs that are of value to those taxpayers. So that's where it's going to come from. What specific tax or what specific revenue source, I don't know. But it's something that I think we definitely would be remiss if we did not do in the potential savings. There's waving hands way down at the end here.
Yeah, morning. Tom Wheeler from Metropolitan Community College. We have a lot of career and technical education programs, and they're very high rigor. But one of my questions is, it sounds like if you're taking like your high school chemistry class, for example, and you're raising that to the college level, that's a knife can cut both ways. Because intuitively, if you just do that in isolation, you're going to find all of a sudden you don't have students succeeding in your class. So I'd like you to talk to us about is how have you engaged your leadership and administration, and if possible, leadership or administration at the college level as well, and your teams, how have you brought your institution to the level where the other classes are also rising and where people are prepared to enter your chemistry class at a college level?
Sure. So a couple of things there again. So I'm also CTE certified. I'm career and technical ed certified myself. My engineering courses are CTE courses, so very familiar with the CTE world. My chemistry courses, over 65% of our juniors take chemistry. Okay, over 65% of them. Now that means that there's another 35% who don't, and we need to make sure that those students are still getting a appropriate and rigorous education as well. So what we've done is, the science department in Zilla is huge. There's 3 of us. And so we've sat down together and looked at, okay, if these are the skills that we need by the time we get to junior level chemistry, what are we going to do in biology? And so we've raised the standards there. What are we going to do in our freshman integrated science courses? So we've raised the standards there. It really is as simple and as difficult as creating a culture of success. You have to teach the kids that this is something that you want to do, that this is something possible for you. Not that you have to go to college. I've got a lot of kids who have taken college credits from me over the years and did not go into colleges or into universities. And that's absolutely 100% okay with me because they went on to some other post-secondary education training. But they saw the possibilities of what they could do. And so we talked a lot about those. I've got one young man, his job now, he's an underwater welder in the Gulf of Mexico. And he makes more money than most of us in this room. Okay, it's insane. And he took dual credit from me while in high school, did not go to college, and instead pursued some of these other areas. But he wouldn't have known about them had it not been for the stuff that we studied in those high school classes. On top of that, to create those types of cultures, you can do that in any type of school. You think that Zilla High School is this wonderful little utopia of education, right? Because I told you all the great stuff about it. Well, we also are 55% free and reduced lunch. We're a minority-majority campus. Out of the 296 districts in Washington State, 296 districts, if you rank them in the amount of money they receive per kid, our per pupil funding, we rank 10th in the state from the bottom. There are only 9 districts in the state of Washington that receive fewer numbers of dollars than we do. We be poor, okay, just straight up. You can do this in poor schools, you can do this in rich schools. It's about creating a culture of success. How did we make it happen in Zilla? This is the hard part. We went 7 years in a row not hiring a single person. We didn't hire a new teacher, not a new principal, not a new custodian, because nobody left. We had exactly the same staff for 7 years. If you can create a high school or create a college department like that, imagine how on board you can get with everybody else. It's as simple and difficult as that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Hi, I'm from the state of Florida, and my question is, what type of requirements, for example, anything in regards to PSAT, SAT, ACT, or any type of college preparatory test? The state of Florida engages in several of those for the criteria to enter into dual enrollment, or at least to have a baseline. What do you do as far as that piece, and how do you prepare in regards to meeting, if you do have that type of criteria, any other type, how do you prepare the school leadership to get those students prepared in that venue so they can enter into dual enrollment if you have something?
Sure. The requirements for our students in high school are the same as the students on the college campus. So anybody that's taking math, anybody that's taking chemistry, anybody that's taking physics, all have to take a math placement test. They're taking exactly the same placement test that the university students are doing. We literally load them all up on a bus one day and we ship them up to Yakima Valley Community College, is our closest testing center, about 30 miles away. They take the exam. As far as what do we do to prepare them, we do no additional test prep for those students. They're taking our regular courses in high school just like they always would have. But our teachers know that. They know that they're supposed to be taking these tests if they want to get into dual credit. So that's how we're able to lift all of our courses together. Now, there are some courses that do not have prerequisites. I don't believe music appreciation has any sort of prerequisite. Some of our history classes don't have prerequisites for them. But anything that has a prerequisite on a college campus, the students have to do exactly the same test. Some students don't pass them the first year. Maybe as a junior they tried to get in and they didn't, so they delay and they wait and they take the course the next year when hopefully they have passed. So it just depends. And there are some students who, right, wrong, or indifferent, don't pass those placement tests. They end up in my chemistry class, they do exactly the same work, and they don't receive college credit for it. And there's a whole nother discussion there.
Over here.
Yes.
I'd like to go back to the master's degree question.
Certainly.
I'm another one of those people that has the P20 experience, half of my career in K-12 and half at higher ed. And I actually came to University of Connecticut to do professional development and teach the professors how to teach. And you can imagine how well that turned out. But actually, during my experience, the last 10 years, I've been director of the large concurrent enrollment program we have at the University of Connecticut. And I've really come to respect the professor's position as scholars and the importance of content, and you alluded to that. But so we have about 1,000 instructors that we do a lot of the things that you talked about with, but where we find the most flexibility for certification is in our departments, and where we find the least flexibility is in our School of Education. And our School of Education actually graduates students with master's degrees heavy in pedagogy that cannot get certified even by our flexible departments in our own university, which is highly embarrassing. So what would you say is the role of schools of education in what we're talking about in preparing secondary teachers to be this seamless link to colleges?
It's vital. I mean, this happens at so many universities all over the place, so this is not a knock on your university. But isn't it a travesty that your own university does not recognize a master's degree from your own university? Your own university's teacher preparation program has said this is what you need to do to become a master teacher. And then master teacher isn't really master teacher because they're not allowed to teach for dual credit. Something has to happen there. Those departments have to get together. What if we still had master's degrees in education with a strong emphasis in chemistry, or a strong emphasis in physics, or a strong emphasis in math, or English language arts, or whatever it happens to be? We have to do something so that we're all talking on the same page. It's funny, I think, in a very bad way, that you could have a master's degree from Central Washington University in the education department and maybe not be allowed to do a dual credit for Central Washington University in another department, even though you have literally the degree is called master teacher, okay, literally. So it's vital, it's vital. One last question, it looks like? One more, okay.
Sat next to a high school math teacher on the flight here who was returning home. She expressed a concern about the mixed messages that students are getting from parents who, on the one hand, are really pushing their students to enroll in concurrent enrollment or dual credit courses for which they may or may not be qualified, and on the other hand are vigorously defending their right to do minimal effort. How do you work with parents? What do they need to hear and understand? What can we do to bring them into the loop so that the educational experience is good?
So my answer to this is probably going to elicit a lot more questions. So first, let me say I'm going to stick around afterwards. So if you want to harpoon me closer, then please do. You know, I was on a conference call about 3 months ago, talking at the policy level about dual credit enrollment. And I said, you know, what about the high school teachers in all of this? Shouldn't high school teachers be compensated a little bit for doing some of this work? Because after all, high school teachers are going to take on additional evaluations by additional departments. There's additional work. There's additional certifications that we're talking about. And we're not talking about even giving the teacher $500 a class when we start adding up the amount of money that's generated in that class. And the response came back was, well, yeah, but the teachers get to teach all the easy kids, so it's a reward for them. You know, when I taught freshman earth science, I taught all the freshmen. I'd probably have 10 or 15 Fs over that semester and never hear from a parent, ever. You know how many A minuses that have destroyed my child's chance for a utopian society? I have had parents come in and literally point their finger at my nose. You ruined my child's GPA. And then I say, you're welcome. Right? There is a huge disconnect there. There is a huge disconnect. You cannot have a challenging, rigorous curriculum that is easy. Right? And that's what they want. That's what they want. This should be really, really hard for everyone but my child. Right? So how do you do that? This was a little controversial when I started talking about my grading policies with the physics department. You can redo every single one of my tests except for the final, and you can redo every assignment. Whoa, that's a little different than college for most people, right? I said, yeah, but I'm going to make it insanely difficult. The tests are really hard. They're harder than the college's test. So then when the parents come back to me and say, isn't there anything we can do to raise our grades? Yeah, you can learn the material, because you can retake the test and you can redo the assignments. And so now we're making it standards-based and we're making it mastery-based. Can you or can you not do this material? That's something that's happening within the K-12 ranks. I think we need to communicate that across the colleges as well. Some colleges are kind of taking on to this, some are not. But I think that there's other ways that you can do it. So what that system does for me, it puts the ball back in the student's court. It's simply, hey, I'm here to help you. This is what you need to know and understand and be able to do, so that when you take the final, which you cannot retake, by the way, even though the kids want to retake it. I say we call the final because it's final. When they take that final, they better perform at or above the college equivalent. My students at the end of my chemistry class, they better be performing at or above the average for the colleges. Because if they're not, I need to not do this for dual credit, because I'm not doing my job. So that's the end of that. Thank you. Thank you.